what great advice. I wish I had it when I was in college, was to just lean into your curiosity and keep exploring, because you just never know. Like, I remember shooting ideas down so quickly in my head, thinking it was dumb or stupid and not fully exploring what that could be. I would say continue to lean into that curiosity and continue exploring and just talk to as many people as you can, even though it's scary. We're not all that bad.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Path Found, the podcast about the real, messy, unexpected journeys that lead us to the work we love. I'm Monica Argandonia, and every week I talk with someone whose story proves there's no single right way to build a meaningful life. What does it take to become the person in the room who asks, but what does this technology actually do to real communities? Today's guest, Virginia Ross, didn't set out to answer that question. She set out to survive college twice. She dropped out of culinary school, co-founded a startup, and spent years building products before anyone gave her permission to care about their consequences. Today, she leads Amazon's state and local AI policy portfolio, analyzing legislation, engaging advocates, and bridging the gap between how technology actually works and how governments want to regulate it. Virginia's story is about a lot of things: being a Korean-American kid in a predominantly white suburb, building a career through relationships instead of a plan, burning out and starting over, and the wild moment when you realize the job you're doing is the one you were always supposed to have. Let's get started. Super happy to have you here with me, Virginia. Can you just give us some background? Where are you from? What were you like growing up?
Sure. So I guess we can start with my parents. My mom and dad immigrated here in the late 70s to, I think they started in Chicago, but ended up in Virginia. My dad was in the military. He enlisted in Korea, and that's where he met my mom. And I am the middle child. So I have an older sister and a younger brother, and we are all 5 years apart. So big gap there. So they came over to Virginia, and they kind of chasing the American dream and settled in Fairfax County, which is the suburb right outside of Washington, D.C. And yeah, we just lived a quiet suburban life. I have to say, like, when I was thinking about this question and what I was like, in some ways I was a typical middle child, but you can't like talk about that without talking about growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood. And look, there were like 3 Asian kids in my school, and they were my siblings. So like, I mean, it looks very different now. Northern Virginia is very diverse, I would say. But when I was growing up there, I was very much like othered. And I think that that had a probably bigger impact on who I am today than I probably realized while I was growing up. I think, when I went to California and I met more Korean Americans that had grown up around more Korean Americans, I realized like their sense of identity was different than mine. I think we're diving straight into it. There's like internalized racism when you grow up and you don't see other people like you. And, I think the goal was to just blend in. And my parents wanted us to assimilate so much that I completely lost the Korean. So my first language was Korean, and I completely lost it by 5 or 6 years old.
Really?
Yeah, I can understand it. And, I think after college, I went back to embrace everything. And when I moved to California, it was like, oh, I'm around other people that look like me and other Korean Americans. And we have this shared identity because we're not quite Korean and we're not quite American. You're not really accepted in either world. But I was in the gifted and talented program. I always had a lot of friends. Very popular, I think. And I think part of that was just always wanting to belong.
Right, to fit in.
I think that's probably where I got my sense of humor, also being a middle child. But yeah, I just wanted to have fun. I think my parents were typical tiger moms. I was pressured into getting really good grades. Academics was always very important. I played musical instruments from the age of 4. I played classical piano and violin, and then later taught myself how to play guitar as like a rebellion. I was like, I'm quitting. And my dad was like, well, fine, we're not buying you any more instruments. So I got my first job and bought my first guitar when I was 15.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so musical, I loved theater. And by the time I graduated from high school, I had poor grades, great test scores. I was the president of my senior class, and I had only gotten accepted into 2 colleges out of the dozens that I applied to. My only remit was to get into college and go. And my parents would have preferred a very prestigious one because my sister ended up at a top college in Virginia. And I went to kind of like just a nice state school called James Madison. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I hated school. Like, I liked school for the social aspect, and I was a curious person. I liked what I liked, but if I wasn't interested, I would just fail or get a C, the bare minimum.
Okay. So
Yeah.
poor grades, but good test scores.
Yeah, I did great on my SATs. I don't know why. I mean, my parents put me in the Princeton Review, which is, I don't know if they still have that now, but it's like
Yeah.
this intense SAT tutoring program that basically gives you the cheat codes. It's like
Yeah.
teaches you how to do the analogies and the math equations, and they really like push the SAT curriculum. So I picked that up quickly, and I think that's really the only reason I got into college because I think I had like a C average.
So when you didn't know what you wanted to do, you go to college, you had to major in something eventually.
Oh, your girl didn't declare a major until her third year because I kept checking undeclared. I had probably like 200 credits by the time I graduated, and I got kicked out twice. When I first started, I think getting that taste of freedom after living under such a strict household, I didn't know what to do with myself, and I had fun. I just had a lot of fun. Woke up late, had all 8 a.m. classes because I didn't know. My parents didn't go to college. Like my mom did, but and it's not their fault. They just like didn't know how to guide me. They didn't sit me down. They go, "Hey, Virginia, like by your second year, you're going to want to know what you want to do. And then you're going to declare a major." And that just wasn't something that I felt. I didn't have that self-motivation to do that. I was literally checking a box. I was told I had to go to college.
Was there even a push like you have to be a doctor, lawyer?
Yeah, but I think by the time I was 18, they're like, yeah, this is not going to happen for her. Maybe a lawyer, but they were like, it's just, can you graduate? Because you've gotten kicked out so many times for bad grades. And every single time I had to kind of appeal to a board to get back in. And my last and final time, I had tapped a professor I had that was also the mother of a friend. I think the common theme we're going to see here is that I've made really good relationships throughout my life. And that's what's got me to the next step. And my friend's mother was a professor who I attended her classes, and she wrote a letter on my behalf and was like, Virginia, don't mess this up. This is it. And so before that, I had taken a whole year off because the school had written me and said, you can't come back until you get your appeal letter and you get your life together and you can kind of show us that you're serious about this. Because I was also getting my funding cut too, because you can't get the loan if you're not meeting a certain GPA. And so I spent that year bartending nights, and I was like a long-term substitute teacher during the day. And I just worked around the clock, sleeping on my older sister's couch because I didn't want to go home to my parents because I was a little ashamed. And I also couldn't go back under their roof after having that taste of freedom.
Makes sense.
And after a year of that, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to go back and do this. I had saved up enough money, so I didn't actually need the loan because back then college was a little bit more affordable. And went back, killed it, got all A's and B's and graduated. And that was 7 years in.
What did
I major in?
Yeah.
History.
Okay.
It was the only class I was doing well in. And literally, like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm so passionate about the past or history. I was like, this is it. I can do well here. I enjoy researching. I like how I never have homework and I just have to write one paper at the end. Literally, that's how I thought about things. I was like, this will be easy.
So you get through 7 years, pulled it together, history degree, but you're still not like, it's not like you knew why you were doing that.
No, I was like, I guess this is the best thing I can do. Maybe I'll teach, even though to be honest, when I was doing that long-term substitute stint, I was like, this ain't it for me. Like, I'm not good at this. I truly believe that teaching is a calling and I really admire the people who can do it. But I was like, I don't think I could do this. Also, like the kids were mean. Like, I was like, wow, I was cool in high school. I thought I would be cool here, but you guys are brutal. Yeah. So I had a friend. So I was like 3 years behind, I guess, my peers at this point, because they had all graduated in 2004. And I'm graduating right at the time where we're about to enter it was a pretty bad recession.
Right.
And I had a really good friend from high school who worked at Booz Allen Hamilton, which is like a management consulting firm out here. And they do government consulting. There was a day when they were one of the big five out here. with Lockheed and like Bearing Point and Accenture. And she was an EA there and she was an executive assistant. And she said, hey, there's this like business analyst role open at the FDIC. And I'm like, what's the FDIC? She's like, I don't know, just go apply. And I'll tell my boss you're a good person and you'll get the job. I think this is a pretty much like, you'll be fine. I didn't even understand like what I was walking into because the FDIC was about to close like 100 banks that year.
So what's the FDIC?
They're the quasi-governmental government agency that insures banks across the country.
Okay. And did you even know what a business analyst did?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I had no idea. I walked in and I remember this woman going, I don't know how you got this interview, but we need someone here now. And so I got the job. And the job was because at the time, so this is like 2007, 2008, we're in a financial crisis. Sheila Bair, the commissioner of the FDIC, comes out and says, we're probably going to close like 100 banks this year. And at this time, it was very much like done by paper. And so they had hired consultants to come in and digitize the claims process. And up until that point, you're only closing a few banks a year. And it was very much you would come at night and you close the bank down and you would do the paperwork to kind of insure all the folks in the bank, right? But this was like a lot of banks. And there was a lot of speculation on whether a big bank would fail that year. I was really young at this time too, and not paying attention. I probably had $100 in my own bank account, so it was not a concern of mine of what was going around in the country. You know, like
Right.
it is only not until now where I'm like, oh my God, that's a big deal. Like a Wells Fargo could have gone down,
Right.
and I think we know now they were bailed out. And so that was my first project. And while my peers and other folks I graduated with were struggling to find jobs because the job market was so terrible and we were in a recession and people were like, you know, and I'm sitting here at a job I thought I had no business being in, but I learned so much. I learned how to actually become a business analyst because I had wonderful mentors who would sit me down and be like, okay, this is what you do. And in that time, the field of like product management really wasn't a thing. You were called like a requirements analyst or a business analyst. You're basically taking the customer need, translating it into something technical to create a roadmap for a technical product. And that's how I got my start in product management.
So did you like it?
Yes and no. I think I enjoyed helping folks solve problems with technology. I think that there was a bit of magic happening when it was like, oh, because the second project I was on was at the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. And they're the folks that I worked on a project that if you, say, worked at Coca-Cola and want to come back for your pension, we would match you up because Coca-Cola would register you as like a missing benefit. And then we would match you up with like your pension online because like that was also a paper process a long time ago.
Right.
So designing that process to come in and claim your pension online, which now you're like, duh.
Right.
But at the time, to actually design that system was really cool.
It wasn't that long ago, but yeah, it was still that paper digital transition. All right. So how long were you there?
Oh, maybe three or 4 years. I burned out quick. That's the thing. That's what I do. It's my MO. I get in a honeymoon phase of whatever I'm doing and I go. And then one day I wake up, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I woke up and I quit.
Did you have another job?
No.
Okay.
I don't know why I do these things. It was like, I'm burnt out. I'm working 12 hours a day. I mean, it was not soul sucking. I mean, that's a little dramatic, I guess. But at the time I was like, I don't want to do this every day anymore. And I just turned in my resignation and I said, I want to go to culinary school.
Really?
Yeah, I enrolled into a program in Virginia at like a junior college, and they had a journeyman program. So when you graduated, you would have your journeyman's license. It's a trade. It was a trade school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's like fancy culinary schools and there's trade schools that teach you how to actually, you know.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I ran a catering business on the side. So I would do like baby showers and like wedding showers.
How long did that take? How long was that?
I dropped out because the margins on catering were not great. And there's like a personal reason. So I was married at the time and I had a very supportive partner. You know, you don't get the privilege to do these kinds of things without someone behind you being able to help you pay the mortgage and the bills. That relationship was coming to an end and I was back on my own again. And I was like, this is too much. So I did a year of that. And I had a friend again, a friend from
Yeah.
high school whose older brother was the executive director of like technology for the College Board. And they're the folks who designed the SAT. And he was looking for product managers and business analysts to help. You know that big book that you would get in high school with all the colleges in it, that big
Yeah.
like catalog?
Yeah.
That needed to be digitized, that needed to be put online. And it also, he was building a program that would connect underserved kids with scholarships and like figuring out how could they fund college careers. Because before it was in that big book and they wanted to put that online. So you could create your own profile, you could submit applications, you could kind of get matched up with the different resources out there to help you finance your college career. And I thought, how cool is that? I wish that was around when
Yeah.
I was looking at colleges. And so I stopped everything. I still cook to this day, though. Like, it's still an incredible passion of mine, and I love cooking. And it's funny having 4-year-olds who don't want to eat anything I cook. And I'm like, I went to culinary school. Like, come on. Like, I've cooked at the Austrian embassy. Okay. I cooked salmon there. That's a big deal. I did that for a couple years and we launched that website and I'm very proud of it. It was called Big Future. I don't know if it's still around, but that project came to a close. I was a consultant on that. And so I, again, was found without a full-time job. I mean, the last one was my fault, but this time I didn't have a job.
How long
And
did you do that with the college board?
it was like about a year and a half.
Okay. Not very long.
Yeah, it was a quick project. And then that same boss I had, the executive director, he resigned and decided to do his own startup and then tapped me to be his first employee and said, I can't pay you, but I can give you equity. I was like, I've got nothing better going on right now. I've saved up a couple of dollars here on this year project. I live a very like frugal lifestyle. I think I've got maybe a year worth of runway on this. Let's do it and see if we can get some investors and then like give ourselves some paychecks. And we did that. And the product was called Speak. Now you're like, duh. But at the time, when you wanted to join a conference call, you had to have like a bridge and you had to boop, boop, beep, boop. You had to put the pin in. And what this did was using voice over like IP technology, you could create your own personal link like speak.com/Monica, and everyone would go there at the designated time and it would call you and patch you in. So it was a really cool product. The problem is like adoption was really hard because people couldn't like wrap you've got decades worth of you're just used to calling in a conference bridge and putting in a pin. Like, what do you mean I just put this in a web browser? Now it's, of course, right?
Right.
But at the time, it just people could not connect with that idea. We had a hard time marketing it. And then Uber Conference came into the space and just swallowed it up. But we were able to get acquired eventually by a small telecom company in Utah. So we were able to exit from that. But it was like 3 years of like trying hard.
Did you ever make any money?
Yes, we got investors and we were able to, it became more of like a B2B product where you could get like your company name and then get your employees using it. But it never quite took off the way we thought it would. But I learned a lot. When you are the only employee, you learn a lot of different jobs
Right.
like design, user experience, customer service. I did all their customer service. I was like the chief happiness director.
Huh.
Like I set up all of the ticketing. I hired. I mean, I was kind of like HR. I mean, we were a very small group of people doing everything. So I got a lot of experience.
That's incredible. All right. So that ends.
That ends, and I'm like, you know what? I'm still in that job at that point, and I'm like, I need another change. I can't be here anymore. And I went to the Grammys because I have friends in the recording academy and they had extra tickets. And they're like, Virginia, you want to go to Los Angeles to attend the Grammys? I said, yeah. So I went to Los Angeles for the first time while I was still living in Virginia. And I just fell in love with the city and I attended the Grammys. And they're usually in February. And by April, I had moved out to Los Angeles.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I saw the Pacific Ocean, which I had seen before, but I don't know what it was. I was in Palos Verdes visiting a buddy of mine and I was like, well, I need to see this every day. I'm going to move here. And I came home and I broke up with the boyfriend I was with at the time. And I said, I'm moving to California. You can't come with me. I'll probably move, when this lease is over in a month. I'll move into the second bedroom. And then I left, packed my dog up, and we moved to Los Angeles.
No job.
The job was Speak, but that
Okay.
ended very shortly after I moved to Los Angeles. And then again, I was left with no job. And I'd broken my foot like the first week I'd move out. I know. And so I did what any normal person would do. I took myself on a vacation to Hawaii to just like think about things. I went to a little island called Molokai for like 2 weeks. Made a lot of friends on that island who I still talk to today. Came back and was like, okay, I'm ready to go look for a job now. And I found this was a very small job that I had working for. I was also a business analyst here working on a product that was for kind of like stock market analysis for the Hang Seng. So it was for a Chinese audience. And I'm like, why did I get hired here? That lasted for about a year. And before I was like, I need to go do another startup. And I joined another startup in Los Angeles called Mammoth Media. And there I did some more product management. And again, like this whole time, I'm like, I'm just doing it. I probably, if I'm thinking about it now, I just had like undiagnosed anxiety and depression, one foot in front of the other, kind of like I'm still kind of aimless, but I'm building a lot of good relationships along the way because this next startup was my old boss at Speak. He was the old CTO. He was the chief technology officer, and he brings me in to this new startup in Los Angeles, and we build products that were, they were like games. They were designed for a younger audience. I learned a lot about kind of how sticky phones are in like game design and like social media design and like what are the mechanics. And this is why I don't give my kids these things. What are the mechanics inside of like apps and experiences that make people want to keep coming back, like that dopamine. And product managers are a lot of the time responsible for those types of things because you want to increase engagement, you want to increase the eyeballs, you want to make sure people are watching the ads because that's the revenue. And it was a really interesting study. And after a while, I was like, I don't think I want to do this. I don't think I agree with this. And I also like don't think I was very good at it.
Okay.
And so I actually switched off the product and I said, maybe I'm better suited to manage the projects instead. So like maybe I can drive people forward and motivate them to keep creating, but I don't want to be the person like designing the mechanics behind any of this. I just want to keep people motivated and moving towards a goal. And so I actually enjoyed that. But as any startup person can tell you, you burn out very quickly from startups. It's very much like passion driven. You're paid mostly in equity, not a lot of cash, and long nights, especially when you support an application that's on the mobile app store. You're basically working retail that your users don't care if you're having Thanksgiving dinner with your family. If something goes down, you got to drop everything and go try and fix it. At that time, I had the chief of product. He had left the company and he had joined Amazon. He had joined Ring and he picked up the phone and called me and said, Virginia, I really need someone over here. Like, can you come interview at Amazon? And I was like, please, yes, I would love to see what it's like under the hood of a big corporation. Up until now, I hadn't worked for a company that had the startups were probably like 20 people,
Right.
and you're doing everything. I was like, I wonder what it's like to be around like millions, like
Yeah.
what's that like? And he actually pulled me in to do product management again, but this time it was for something. This is like really what opened me up and was like, oh, I really enjoy this kind of work. And he said, hey, we've launched this app inside of Ring, and we just need help kind of thinking through and like looking around corners on like what are the consequences of some of the design situations on the broader community. Because Ring is a video doorbell, and we've built this kind of like online community around it where you are uploading videos and saying, hey, someone stole a package off my porch. What are the unintended consequences of when you upload that into like an online community? And we also, law enforcement is on the platform, community members are on the platform. Like, what are the trust and safety measures that we need to design in order for all of those like kind of stakeholders to work together in a way that is not damaging? That's like, love it. I'm here for this. And because of that work, I got exposure to folks in civil society, advocates, because what I love about Amazon is not that the resources are endless, but they want to get it right. And so I was able to connect with experts in the field. I was able to connect with academics and say, hey, we're trying to design XYZ and like bring them in and start designing features that would help the community be safer. I like to say like my remit was to prevent racial profiling inside of our technology. Because, the analogy I would always, like, for example, when you posted, I designed like a speed bump because the reason you would sometimes be posting on the app is because you felt like you're like on camera, you caught a crime or a safety incident. And so you're going to be kind of mad when you post about it, right? This person, it looks like this person stole my bike out of my garage and I caught them on my Ring camera or whatever, right? And you're probably more likely to use a race descriptor with nothing else.
Got it.
And I wanted our users to think through, like, take a beat and think through, like, what are the unintended consequences? And maybe there are 2 or 3 other descriptors you can use before using solely race. And that became a community guideline of ours.
Wait, how did you implement that? Like, how did you?
So that's like where the technology comes in. When you open your Instagram or Twitter or whatever, I don't use these things anymore. When you open them up, the whole purpose from a product manager's perspective is to get you posting as fast as you can. So any sort of friction that gets in the way, you want to like reduce the number of taps or clicks that gets the information or the media online. And so knowing that, I had to kind of go against my product manager instincts and be like, no, we got to put as many speed bumps in there to make it slower and to make them stop and think. So we had like a stop and think screen saying, hey, think about what you're doing before you actually put this up for all your whole neighborhood to see. And then kind of the second prong was educating our content moderation team on like how to approve the content, because we all did pre-moderation. So before the content came onto the app, it was reviewed by humans. So teaching them, kind of giving them bias training, but then also putting in guidelines saying, hey, if you are going to describe someone's race, you need 2 other descriptors. Because, for example, Asian lady stole my bike, that could be me. But Asian lady with glasses and lots of tattoos, that's me. I stole your bike. Like
that is me.
That's what I look like. Yeah, that's me with a Los Angeles hat on. Like, yeah, that's her. So yeah, so that was one of the bigger projects, and that's what exposed me to this idea of advocacy and like civil society. I mean, I'm just like living in my own world until I'm like opened up by this job. Like thinking about, wow, we have millions and millions of customers. And when you've an app or a product that is not only being interacted with by the consumer, but the public, like your customers now, the general public. So what a responsibility to have. I just had like endless curiosity for like how technology can impact like the world around it. And I was thinking about it, but not really thinking. I think it started with me understanding, like being a product manager and being like, oh my God, this is how you design sticky things. And
right. And the consequences.
And the consequences of that. And then like they're younger, I think some of these products are geared towards younger minds.
So you're having a really positive impact.
I like to think so. Yeah.
How long are you doing this?
For 3 years, I'm doing that. And helping these product managers while being a product manager myself, being that voice and that advocate inside the company saying, hey, if we think about this, or I'm going to design a roadmap that is going to further prevent this from happening inside the app. And then I got pregnant after not thinking I could get pregnant. My husband and I were told that we would not be able. Oh yeah, during this too, I got married again. So we were told we weren't able to have children without some sort of like surgery or IVF. And then during the pandemic, I got pregnant. And then when I went in to look at the babies for my first scan, there were 2 egg sacs there. Oh. And I was like, oh God, what is this? I'm like going to be 40 this year. Twins. And it's in the middle of the pandemic. And I live in Silver Lake, which is like not the most kid-friendly part of Los Angeles. Like our sidewalks were basically like, I don't even know how you could get a stroller around my neighborhood. And so my husband's from Colorado. We met in Los Angeles, in Long Beach, and we don't have family in California. And we thought, hey, maybe we ought to move to Virginia, where my folks are. And I wanted my kids to be around their Korean family. My husband is half white and half Mexican, but I really wanted our future children to know their grandparents and their Korean family. And so we picked up and moved, and I went on maternity leave. And right before I came back from maternity leave, I got a phone call saying, hey, Virginia, you're not fired, but we did some reorganization and we've done a great job advocating and instilling this idea of trust and safety. And so now the teams are going to absorb that pillar into their own work. So you don't have to be the standalone service. What do you want to do?
So this is still with Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was like, you can't fire me while I'm in there. No. We love you. This is a great opportunity. Is there any part of the business you want to explore, or you can join back the team and do something else? what do you want to do? And I said, I'll think about it. And, during this time, I had worked heavily with our public policy department. And because they were able to connect me with the civil society, with the academics, with the nonprofits to go talk to. And oftentimes they would I would take a little trip to DC and explain the inner workings of our product or kind of like demystify some of the technology and kind of earn that trust with their policymakers or, other folks out, externals. Right. And I'd really admired that work. I actually didn't really even know what they did. I just knew that they were the people that told us when laws were passed and there were bills being proposed. And I would be kind of a subject matter expert for them every now and then. And I thought I really enjoyed working with my public policy manager. Maybe he has an opening and I just happen to be in Virginia, right outside of where they're building the new headquarters. Maybe that could be a thing. And so I called him and he said, actually, maybe this could be a thing. I do have an opening on my team for someone to really lean into these external engagements. And we really need to be earning trust out there and having someone be a bridge between the technology and the policy and like can explain how things work on the tech side and then also go back to the business and explain how the policies are working on the outside. And we think you'd be a good fit for that. And I was like, well, I don't have anything else going on except for these two babies. And so, yeah, I came back from maternity leave to a new job inside of Amazon, a new manager, a new department. And that is where I came to this. That was about 4 years ago. And one of the reasons I want to do this with you is because had I known that this field or this type of advocacy or this job had existed when I was younger or had seen people that look like me doing it, I mean, I'm very grateful for all of my experiences and I'm very proud of what I've accomplished. But if I could make that easier for one person, I'd love to do that.
So it's interesting because I just finished another interview. The episode's out now. And it's these two authors, and they wrote this book called Hacking College. And they talk about that hidden job market. There are these jobs out there that, people just know doctor, lawyer, teacher, nurse, vet, kind of the surface, law enforcement. But, law enforcement could mean doing fraud investigations for, the lottery.
I know. I thought public policy was a group of 100 lobbyists. That is not what I do.
And so
that is not what I do at all.
Yeah. And, so it's trying to get people to understand all those possibilities and opportunities. And, their kind of argument was the major doesn't really matter. You had a history major.
Oh, yeah. I barely think about that.
Right?
No, it doesn't matter.
And you had to build it through all these experiences. So it took you a little bit longer.
A little bit.
But, think of all the things that you did.
Yeah, it's so funny talking about it out loud. I'm like, wow, I guess I have done a lot of weird stuff. And I think that's why Anne connected us because she's like, God, I didn't know you did that. I was like, yeah, for a whole year of my life.
Yeah.
Just quit my job and studied how to cut vegetables and make soup.
The culinary piece is the funny part. But you know what? You tried it. What if that had still been in your head thinking, maybe I should have done that?
I mean, I also was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that prevented me, it was very painful and it still is for me to be on my feet for long periods of time. So all those years bartending too. And I would have loved to gone into even hospitality because I really enjoyed being a bartender. But physically, I've pretty severe arthritis in my joints. I don't think I could have hacked a life as a chef. Mm-hmm. It just is so hard on your body. And it's really stressful. I think this is stressful too. I don't know.
What is your title now?
Now I lead our state and local AI policy portfolio. So every major piece of AI policy that gets introduced and could possibly move, I am analyzing for risk. I am engaging on and advocating for, positive legislative outcomes for Amazon.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you like it?
I love it. I have not lit this up about a job. I mean, these past 4 years have just been so incredible. I've met so many amazing people. I've learned so much about our government and how advocacy works and, beyond I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill, civic engagement, how important that is. And that coincides with how I personally live my life. Yeah, I just can't believe this job existed and I had no, Had I paid a little bit more attention in civics and government, maybe I would have thought to have gone into some sort of like policy, public policy, politics. I love all of it. And I love state and local politics. I love that's like where the rubber meets the road. I mean, people are coming out making laws. The federal government, I appreciate Congress and how thoughtful it can be, but I think I have the temperament for state politics. It's just fast
Yeah.
and exciting. And I was like, if I had been told you're going to be paid one day to have great relationships, think about hard problems and influence policy, I would have been like, get out of here. I'm a bartender. Like, that's something other people do.
But bartending is incredible people skills.
Yeah.
Right? And
I guess so.
negotiating and
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
those are all transferable.
Yeah. Never thought of it that way.
Do you see yourself in this for a while?
Yes, absolutely. I wish I had gotten an earlier start, but I'm proud of what I've achieved so far and the relationships I've made and the progress I've made. And what I appreciate about Amazon too is, I started out doing something completely different and it's allowed me to kind of move. It was a lateral move, but I'm doing something completely different than I was, 7 years ago when I started at the company.
So you have twins, and as they're growing up and, knowing your experiences, how are you going to guide them? What advice would you give them as they're in high school, going off to college, or even in college and figuring out the next step?
I can tell you it's going to be probably a lot different from my parents just because now I guess they're technically third generation, second generation. Because I was told find a steady job, stay at one company, stability, prestige. That was like very important. I mean, what a flex in the Korean American community when your parents are like, my daughter's a doctor, not me. There's so much to think about that because the job market's going to look so different even in 5 years with AI. Like, I can't stop thinking about that. My girls are so creative. Like, they love art. My husband went to art school and I also paint and draw. And so we're a very creative family. I want to encourage them to keep doing that and keep up the relationships. I think like that's probably been my most valued superpower is just being able to build relationships and earn trust and be a good person. I want them to study hard, and it feels trite to say find something that you love because I've done that too and failed at that. I don't know.
You didn't fail.
I tried. Like sometimes I'm like, God, this was such a hard, arduous road. Did it need to be that hard? Did my character need this much building? Because it was really hard, Monica. Like, wish it had just been a straighter line. But yeah, I want them to work with their hands. I still think that like there's still going to be a premium on human experiences and human art and human created things. If they want to lean into that, great. If not, I'm going to tell them to get like an HVAC certification. I don't know. I'm going to like tell them how college goes. I'm going to tell them like, hey, there's more than just one path. Like you don't have to become a doctor or a lawyer. There's a lot of different things you can do. And I hope they're going to get that exposure. It's just being around me and our friend group and their friends and the community we're in. And I don't know. What about you? What are you telling your students?
I tell them they have to make the most out of their college experience. So, take the classes that interest you, take the classes that build skills, don't worry. So many of them, like, I can take anything. I just need 3 units. I'm like, yeah, but make it count.
Oh my God, where were you
and go meet people. And, every time a student comes into my office and, I'm like, well, what do you want to do with this? What do you want to do? Why? And let's talk about what other what minors could you add on, like if you're environmental science and policy, add on a communications or political science or Spanish, because I changed my major 6 times, went to 3 different universities. Took me 6 years to graduate.
Oh, I love this for us.
Yeah. So, I didn't. And then, I was a film major. My degree's in film production, and now I teach environmental science and policy. So there you go.
Wow.
And I'm an anthropologist. But yeah, it's hard. I think students today, and I am so glad that you shared this story because I think a lot of young people, they're afraid of what's happening with AI. And, I think that needs to be a concern. And I think that the cost of living is hard. It's, they're worried about going into debt and how am I going to get a job? And it's, I think, harder because those relationships you were talking about, those are harder, I think, to make because everybody's on their phone, everybody's doing everything on a computer, everything's online. I mean, even some of their internships have been online. I'm like, don't do an internship online. You got to be with people.
Yeah. And you've got to build those like authentic relationships.
Yeah.
Like I can't say I have a ton of friends, but the ones I have, like Anne,
Yeah.
they're authentic. I also think like I have also been very fortunate in it. My parents, and I touched on this earlier, like my parents like struggled a lot to put us in a nice neighborhood. We're like the poorest family in the nicest neighborhood. I grew up in a upper middle class neighborhood. Financially, it was hard to be in. And I think it was deliberate on my parents' part so that I would grow up with folks who had parents with college degrees. My friends' parents were doctors and lawyers and successful people with generational wealth. And those were my friends growing up. And those were my friends in college. And those were the people that I connected with after college when I didn't have jobs. So I think that my parents put me in a position of privilege because had they stayed more comfortably, I guess, if you want to, in a not as great neighborhood, I don't know if I would have had the opportunities because I was just so adjacent to a lot of other types of privilege that I wouldn't have necessarily had if my parents hadn't like been smart, I guess, about it wasn't without its, drawbacks. I felt alone a lot.
But they were helping you build your social and cultural capital.
Yes. And I didn't see that until like much later, where I was like, oh, that's why. Because I was always so resentful. Because I started out at like a private Catholic school and I was like, what am I doing here? I don't want to be Catholic, And now I'm like, oh, I look at my best friends from college and growing up, their parents were all very successful people. And they were the ones taking me on these nice vacations. They're the reason I know how to vacation. My parents never took me on vacation. Like that's how I've been to, any sort of name a beach. That's how the Hamptons or wherever. Like my friends took me there.
Yeah.
I went to like the Virgin Islands for spring break because I had a friend who had a house there. But I would have never, my parents would have never in a million years had a little bungalow in St. Croix. Like I had friends that did. And so I think that also plays a part in how I was able to kind of like, it was a little easier for me to blend in.
So one piece of advice for college students today.
Well, now I'm stealing yours, Monica.
It's okay.
I mean, what great advice. I wish I had it when I was in college was to just lean into your curiosity and keep exploring because you just never know. Like I remember shooting ideas down so quickly in my head, thinking it was dumb or stupid and not fully exploring what that could be. And so I would say that. I would say continue to lean into that curiosity and continue exploring and just talk to as many people as you can, even though it's scary. We're not all that bad.
Virginia, thank you so much for sharing. You've had an incredible journey. I'm super happy for you.
Well, I'm so grateful that you're a teacher helping the youths. And gosh, I hope there's more Monicas out there.
Thank you so much for listening to Path Found. If anything we talked about today connected with you or gave you a new perspective, we'd love it if you subscribed, left a review, or shared the episode with someone you care about. You can also find us on Instagram at Path Found Podcast. To explore more stories, resources, and ways to get involved, visit KeystoneNetwork.org. This podcast is just one part of the journey. At Keystone Network, we're helping young people and anyone figuring it out as they go build meaningful futures one step at a time. A huge thank you to my podcast editor, David Strutt. You can find him on LinkedIn for helping bring these stories to life, and to Elizabeth Miner at Silvermine Creative for the beautiful artwork and web design. And if you're on your own path, navigating the unknown, making a pivot, or simply figuring it out as you go, just know you're not alone. The route may not be linear, but there's always a way forward. I'm Monica Argandonia, and I'll see you next time on Path Found.